It's a day and the world is waiting. Move along to the song, singing in your soul. Feel the beat, clap your hands, let it take control. All you need, all you want, are you ready to find your way? 'Cause every day is a new day. Everything's going your way. Gonna make it last forever. Keep it together, 'cause it keeps getting better. Whoa, whoa, walk through life and move ahead to your destination. Shine so
Robbie, so grateful you managed to come over and see me. Thank you so much. I'm so excited, I have to say, out of all people that, you know, you do indeed, and it's been many, many years. And I just recently overheard that Spandau Ballet was in the restaurant. And
Ballet.
You came, ballet, I can never say that. Why are they called like that?
Well, I mean, it's Spandau is a place in Berlin, I think, and ballet, as in ballet. It's a good name. I don't know where it came from, but it's a good name.
Have you ever had any problems with people thinking there might be someone else?
So there's a good story that goes there. When they first arrived in Dublin, which is I think in 1984, 85, around that period, they actually came from the UK to live here for a year because there was a tax loophole, and they were avoiding paying, you know, massive taxes in England. So by coming here for X amount of time, they avoided the tax. But we had a new hotel in Dublin, still there now. I don't know what it's called now, but it was the Barclay Hotel, and it was Dublin's first 5-star hotel. And one rule that they made very obvious in part of their whole marketing campaign was that they wouldn't allow in bands. There were no bands, no rock bands.
Why
you know,
was it
because
such
of
a bad reputation?
Well, at the time, you'd read about all these bands wrecking hotel rooms and throwing TVs out the window. So this is like, you know, it was a marketing ploy. They just weren't going to have bands. But, you know, Dublin was shocked when they read Spandau Ballet were staying at this 5-star hotel. And the rumour at the time went around that the reason that they got to stay there was when they made the reservation. Whoever was in the reservation office believed that Spandau Ballet were a Russian ballet troupe, and they were delighted to have this ballet troupe. So when they arrived, shocking her.
So going back to those years, because I've been in Ireland 13, 14 years, so that's, you know, a little bit before my time.
Unfortunately, that's almost 30 years ago. Yeah.
Jesus, it is indeed. Well, that was, you know, only when I was born. Anyway, how did you get to know them?
Well, at the time, I had the Pink Elephant. I was running the Pink Elephant for actually a guy called Paddy Belton, who was the Lord Mayor of Dublin.
Sorry, but Pink Elephant, I remember Reynolds. So yeah. Pink Elephant
was actually the original Reynolds. It was Pink Elephant first, and then it became Reynolds. When it was the Pink Elephant, I used to manage it for a guy, and then after a few years, I bought the club myself and renamed it. And renamed it Reynolds. And Reynolds, as you probably know, is French for fox. Yeah. So that was the connection. But at the time, the Pink Elephant was the hottest, coolest club in Dublin. And we were very lucky that it was a period in the English tax regime, if you like, where bands, if they stayed in England, they had to pay big taxes. It was like 60-70% of tax in their earnings. But through a loophole, they were able to come and live abroad. And obviously Dublin was handy because it was only an hour away by train. By living here for a year, they avoided taxes. So the likes of Spandau Ballet, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Def Leppard, and many others came to live here. And because Dublin was a much smaller city then, so when they came to live here, the Pink Elephant became their home from home. And I mean, the likes of Spandau Ballet.
Why Pink Elephant? Like, there was no other club?
No, there was lots of other clubs. There were lots of other clubs. But we were lucky enough. I mean, it was the club. It was the best club in the city. I mean, without throwing bouquets at myself, I mean, I spent a lot of time picking and choosing the people I wanted to work there, the people I wanted to come there. And even to like 20 years later, 25 years later, I was still standing on the door of clubs picking and choosing who I want in them. So that was kind of my modus operandi. That's what I do. But lucky enough, as I say, in around 1985, when this whole loophole tax thing in the UK was going on, we were the hottest thing in town. And therefore the clubs found us out, and that's where they made their home.
And you were the hottest for a long, long time. That only really ended in, what?
5-6 years ago. When you say me, I mean, it was I was involved in 3 clubs in total over my life. I mean, the Pink Elephant for about 5 years. And that was about, I think, roughly speaking, from about 83 to 87 or 88, and at that time it was absolutely the hottest club in town. Then I got a great opportunity to be involved myself in a club, and we opened, along with a guy called Jerry O'Reilly, who's long since gone at this stage, Lily's Bordello, which is to this day still there and still going strong. I was there for 2 years, and then again got an opportunity to go back to the old premises where the Pink Elephant was, and I established Reynolds. And as you probably know,
so who's hanging out in Reynolds?
Well,
tell us all. The chorus, we know all that. The Irish.
Well, the plan initially, if you like, the plan or the target market, let's call it that, was people in the show business, people in the media business, people high up in business. So it was at the time that they would have been known as yuppies. So they were people with money, just young, good looking. They could spend money. And again, because it was a small city, there was only room for one club like that, and we were lucky enough to be that club. Like Reynolds would have been frequented by anybody from Bono to Dennis O'Brien. Like, you know, from the top rock and roll people we have to the top business people we have. But on top of that, it wasn't an elite club, because you still had the guys, if you like, who worked for U2 would hang out there. Got people who worked for Dennis O'Brien hung out there. It wasn't about money, it was more about what people looked like and what they had to offer that I was looking for in the door, you know.
So fascinating. I think you have so many stories that there will be a book in it.
I'm afraid to write them.
Could you ever write a book?
Well, I'd have to change the names to protect the guilty, you know.
What were they guilty of?
Well, I mean, I have some good stories, yeah, I have to admit. But I mean, there's some funny stories. I mean, going back to the old Pink Elephant, I told this story, just to put this in context. I mean, Spandau Ballet were here in town last week, and I met up with them after 29 years, and I used to hang out with them when they were here for the year they spent here, and we became, a couple of the band and I became quite close friends. So when we met up last week, we were reminiscing and we were telling stories, and I told them a story that they didn't know, and I think it's a great story. I have dined out on this story many times, so I'll tell you.
Give it to me.
As I say, the Pink Elephant was a very cool club, and there were 4 VIP tables, and they were in great demand. Always somebody wanted one of these VIP tables. And Status Quo were playing in Dublin this particular night, and I got a call from the promoter and said, look, Status Quo are coming in, can you keep them a table? So they arrived with their entourage into the club, down the stairs, and I had this table waiting for them. But it wasn't one of the VIP tables. Now, they weren't to know the difference, but it was quite obvious that these 4 tables at a raised level were the VIP club, and I was giving them a little one down here, you know. So I said, there's the table. And there's 2 guys, Francis and Rick, and Francis Rossi and Rick, and they both looked at me and said, hey man, you know who we are? We're Status Quo. We want one of those good tables up there. I said, sorry guys, they're booked out. And they looked at me as if to say, well, who's more important than we are? Like, we are the most important people in town.
And then who arrived?
And then they said to me, can you not move somebody? And I said, well, who would you have me move? I said, that one's booked for U2. That's Spandau Ballet. That's Status Quo. Or that's Def Leppard. And that one there is for Spandau Ballet. So who would you have me move for you? And they looked at me and they went, no way, they're not booked in there. I said, trust me, they'll be here shortly. So they sat down their little table, and right enough, one by one, these bands arrived in, and they were blown away, you know, which was a great moment for me, because the club was just full of really important people at the time.
For such a small Dublin as well, it is unbelievable. I think it's so.
Well, I mean, to be fair to the likes of Bono and U2, I mean, they put a spotlight on Dublin.
Yeah.
They just definitely put it, like the Beatles did in the 60s, put a spotlight on Liverpool.
Yeah.
U2 put a spotlight on Dublin. And in the rock world, then Dublin became kind of cool. It was a cool place to hang out. And I mean, and to his credit, I mean, whenever well-known famous bands came to Dublin, Bono would host, you know, a party for them, or you'd take them around town, or you'd introduce them. Like many people he introduced to me over the years, because he was quite a regular customer in the club, and I got to know him on a personal level. And he would bring people in and just introduce them to me, you know.
So that was all very exciting, but unfortunately it came to the end, and it was a tough time, right? Well, did you see it coming?
Well, they were the early years. I mean, we're talking, like, we're jumping 20 years forward from that time, because I mean, the downturn of the economy came in, for me anyway, in 2007, 2008, and the club the previous year, and I mean, I had extended myself at that stage. I had 4 restaurants, I had a bar, and I had a club, and the economy.
There were crazy times. Sorry,
go ahead.
there were, because I remember that.
Oh, yeah,
we lived like there was no tomorrow. You really didn't see anything coming. You just wanted to have a good time. People work hard, don't get me wrong. I worked hard as well, but you know, you work hard to party.
Yeah.
That's the reality, really.
Well, I mean, that was, unfortunately, we were like children in a candy store.
Yeah.
I mean, this country had never been used to massive wealth, and all of a sudden we found it. And I mean, you had people doing ridiculous things. I mean, there was more helicopters, you know, per capita in Ireland than there was in America. Like, it got ridiculous. And I mean, I was at the forefront of that because people were spending this big money in my clubs or my restaurants. So, I was really reaping the benefits of the boom, if you like. But then, like, you know, the reports were that it was going to be a soft landing, but it was anything but. It was a crash, and it was a real big crash. And I mean, like some of the huge developers, the bigger you are, the harder you fell. Yeah. And because I was at the forefront of it, and I was, if you like, you know, tapping into the people with the big money, as soon as they dried up, I dried up very quickly.
And I think that was the first thing, but what I remember, because I was extremely against it as well, I remember the law coming in of the nightclubs closing at whatever time it was, 2 or 3 in the morning, when you could stay open till 5, 6. That made a huge difference.
Well, I mean, I had a bee in my bonnet with it. I mean, I was involved in the Restaurant Association, and we campaigned on numerous occasions to have the liquor laws extended beyond 2 o'clock. It was 2 o'clock was the latest drink you could sell in the city. And these were in the middle of boom times where people had money to spend. There was a spotlight in Ireland, people were coming in, there was tourists, the whole of it. It just made no sense at all. That of whole, I think in Europe we were closing earlier than anybody else.
Well, I got the point about the, you know, alcohol intake in Ireland, and people were drinking more than anywhere in the wars, etc. But what I actually truly believed that people were drinking more when you had to finish at 2, 3 in the morning, because they were literally lashing alcohol into their system because they knew the time was coming. When they were able to take it easy, leave at 4 or 5 in the morning whenever they wanted, I don't think it was as bad. And also it created this whole traffic on the streets, taxis not being able to pick up people. I think it was horrendous.
Well, part of the problem for us as an association was that the law wasn't administered fairly. I mean, you had certain clubs in certain areas being closed down and other clubs being allowed to open. So where you might have a section of the city being sort of managed, if you like, by one police station, the next unit next door, the next station, who looked at a different area, allowed their people to go later. So you would have people leaving my club at 2 because I was closed down, going to a different area, which is only like 20 minutes walk away, and the clubs are allowed to stay open there till 3 or 4. And it made no sense. So it was the administration of the law that became the problem. Because I think if everybody was made to close at 2 o'clock at the time, there would have been such an outcry that it would have changed. Yeah. But because there was always somewhere to go.
True, but I also think, especially in your case and in Reynolds, it was, you know, people were coming in there late because that was the nightclub. You were going to a ball, whatever it was, you were hanging out in the pub, and you were going to Reynolds because you were able to stay there till 5, 6 in the morning. All of a sudden you have only an hour.
Exactly.
For people to hang
I
out.
suffered from you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Because we were high profile, and because, you know, the club's name was in the paper, my name was in the paper regularly, we were also a target, therefore, for the police. Because if they closed us down, it got publicity. And I mean, you know, I think I was 18 times I was in front of the court because of late closing. 18 times. But every time I was there, it hit the newspapers. So it was like a one-up for the police. They had just, you know, done this. With 10 other clubs they closed didn't get the publicity. So I was kind of, you know, I was a victim of my own, you know, publicity, if you like, you know.
But now you're back.
I'm back.
You have a restaurant, which is fabulous.
Can't keep a good man down.
Absolutely. So Bono was there recently, and I believe he hangs out there quite a bit, and you know, other celebrities pops in from time to time because everybody still loves you, and that's one thing. And another thing, you know, it is a bloody good restaurant. So what's next?
Just to go back to where you started. I mean, I've made a lot of friends over the years in Dublin. It's still a small town. So a lot of people who would be relatively famous, but age is a good thing as well. Relatively famous or well known, they probably frequented one of my clubs or restaurants over the years. So I've made some great friends in the city, and that's great, and it stands to the business, helps the business. But you know, people are you know, they demand a certain amount of service and quality. So just because you know me, I might get you in once, but if I don't give you what you want, you don't come back twice. So it's still important that I give good service, good food, good whatever. It has to be quality, or they just don't come back. And a lot of people at that level that we're talking are demanding, and they know they've travelled and they know what they're looking for. So it's important to give them what they want. Just just a little plug there for Belushi. But anyway, carrying on from that. I mean, yes, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing because we're in our third year now. The restaurant is has turned a big corner this year. First year was tough. Second year we probably did okay, but this year we definitely turned the corner. We're making money, and I think I think we'll go on. I think the restaurant will go on to do better and better. But I'm getting itchy feet again, you know. So but I'll be careful this time.
I actually can't believe you're getting itchy feet. Would you not just relax and enjoy?
I'll be careful this time. So yeah, but I would like to have a second one. But
would you like to have a nightclub again?
Well, I don't. I think nightclub almost in inverted commas is an old-fashioned concept anymore. Like you don't have sort of pubs, clubs, restaurant, nightclubs. They tend to blend all into one at the moment. I mean, if you go to the continent or even to America, a lot of clubs are restaurants, or restaurants are clubs and bars, and they're all one. So I think the future for clubs is that they probably open all day as bars, restaurants, and they just go late. And you know, maybe at 12 o'clock you ramp up the music, you create a dance floor maybe. But basically the bar stroke, restaurant stroke club is all one. And that's, you know, what I want to do next.
Brilliant. Well, I have no idea where you're taking this energy from. But fair play. We can only admire that. And listen, I look forward to watching you.
Oh, you'll be on the VIP list.
I will be,
yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen next year. And best of luck, Robbie. Brilliant.
And you too. Best of luck to you.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're more than welcome. Yeah. That's right. Okay.